On behalf of the International Fund for Animal Welfare, we are so delightful to have you here for our 6th episode of Conversations on Conservation and Animal Welfare. Today's episode, we're going to be focusing on the incredible work happening every day behind the scenes with our Marine Mammal Rescue and Research team. The format of this episode is going to consist of a brief discussion, a tour, followed by a question and answer segment at the end. My name is Sabrina Foley, and I am the Global Marketing Manager for IFAW. I am delighted to have with me today Brian Sharp, Director of our Marine Mammal Rescue and Research team.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me tonight, Sabrina.
Of course, Brian, it's my pleasure. We're so excited to have you. And I want us just to jump right in because we have so much to go over and see today. So Brian, for those of us who aren't familiar with how the Marine Mammal Rescue team started, would you be able to give us a brief history on how that happened?
Absolutely. Well, to start, IFAW's Marine Mammal Rescue and Research Program began a little over 21 years ago. It began as Cape Cod Stranding Network, and before we officially became part of IFAW in 2007. So for over 2 decades, we've been rescuing stranded marine mammals on a 700-mile stretch of coastline in southeastern Massachusetts, which includes Cape Cod. Now, just north of where I'm sitting here tonight at our Rescue Operations Center is one of the busiest locations for dolphin strandings anywhere in the world. And part of that is what makes Cape Cod so special. And because it's so frequent, it gives us an opportunity to learn a lot. So what has emerged in that 2 decades is an incredible network of staff, biologists, veterinarians, and volunteers who have given their time and energy to save so many different species. Common dolphins, such as today, the trucks just pulled in. I did not plan this, I can guarantee. The team is actually returning. They had 6 common dolphins that stranded today in Wellfleet, actually, and the trucks are just getting back from that response. So all 6 animals were released. So that was a great outcome. But again, we couldn't have planned this if we tried, but it does happen quite frequently.
That's incredible, Brian. And we couldn't do what we do without our supporters. So thanks to our supporters for helping us save those 6 dolphins just today. Which brings me to a great question. What about the Cape and its geography makes it a global hotspot for these types of things? And how many animals are we talking about have you guys been able to rescue?
That's a great question. And the Cape is very unique. It is a sandy peninsula that sticks out in the ocean. And because of that, offshore animals such as dolphins can come in hunting prey or fish resources. They can become trapped behind the sandbars and mudflats. We have tide fluxes or a tide difference of about 9 to 12 feet. And so a dolphin is swimming in water, hunting fish, and suddenly 6 hours later is high and dry and in need of assistance from our team. So interestingly enough, on our 20th anniversary, almost to the day, the team registered its 5,000th response, and it wasn't far from where the initial, the first one had occurred back in 1998. So it was very coincidental. 2019 ended up being one of our highest years on record, over 475 responses to marine mammals. And this year is not much different. It has been very busy, as evident from today, with the 6 dolphins that stranded.
That's incredible, Brian. And it's actually a perfect segue into what I was going to ask next. Can you tell us a little more about the mass stranding that took place about a month ago? I remember this visit vividly because not only was it a Monday with COVID still looming, and I heard the news of this mass stranding, I was literally crying in my coffee cup answering emails about this.
Yeah, so it was Sunday morning on August 9th, the team received a call of 20 dolphins in an area called Chipman's, or in the Wellfleet Gut, so Herring River in Wellfleet. And it's about 50 minutes here from the Rescue Operations Center. So the team immediately started pulling equipment and gear together to get on scene. They also, at the same time, called volunteer responders. We have volunteer responders that make up our core These are people from the general community. They get out there, they are eyes and ears. That 20 or 30 dolphin report ended up being 45 common dolphins that were caught by the tides. And unfortunately, like I said, it was the beginning of August, and we were experiencing one of the hottest stretches of weather that we had had this summer. Dolphin skin is not suited to sun exposure. They're not used to it, and so they haven't developed the protection that we have from it. So in just a matter of minutes, these animals were suffering from second and third degree burns. So the volunteer responders and staff had to react quickly to get sheets on the dolphins, as you see in photos such as this, to protect those dolphins from the harmful effects of the sun. The tide was moving so fast, only 11 dolphins could be rescued from the mud and brought into our transport trailers to be able to do a health assessment, treatment. The other 35, the tide was coming in so fast, the staff stayed with them. You can see how, this photo, you can see how muddier people get doing these responses and how physically exhausting it is, trudging in the mud, carrying these animals. We were able to transport the animals that could be rescued and brought into the trailer to a deep water release site. And the other 35, we stayed with them and provided supportive care until they could be refloated, and then attempted to herd them out into deep water. It was incredible. It was a long day, and especially with it being in the middle of a pandemic, it makes it that much more difficult. With the pandemic, we do take all necessary precautions that is needed to be able to still do our work and still be able to save the lives of these animals.
Right. I mean, I can see through these pictures, everybody's not only wearing all the gear they need to on a normal basis, but all the face masks and other PPE that is required during a pandemic, Brian. So how are you keeping everyone safe when these types of situations arise? I mean, it's hard enough keeping people safe going to the grocery store.
Absolutely. And we have had to make some changes to our protocols and our techniques. Luckily, being a staff of biologists and veterinarians, we're used to trying to prevent our exposure to different pathogens. Part of the work that we do involves necropsies or animal autopsies. So very well situated to reducing our exposure to pathogens. And in this case, it actually worked to our advantage because we had a stockpile of PPE available when local hospitals, when the pandemic first hit Massachusetts, we were able to donate most of our PPE to the local hospitals to get them through those crucial first weeks of the pandemic. And with that, we've been able to continue on. Our work hasn't stopped. It's as evident from this being one of the busiest summers that we've had in recent history.
Wow, thanks for that and explaining that, Brian. It sounds like you guys were already prepared for this way before everybody else. So I can tell that you're not home right now. At least I hope you're not home. I hope that's not your bed behind you. Can you give us a little tour, a sneak peek behind the curtain, maybe some tools of the trade that are your favorite?
Absolutely. So I want to show you 3 different things tonight, and we'll go smallest to largest. First off, right here, this is a temporary satellite tag. So what this is this provides us the opportunity to be able to track a dolphin after it's been released. And this really helps inform our decisions. This lets us know if the dolphin is surviving and thriving. Are they going offshore? Are they going to areas where dolphins should be going and utilizing that habitat? This piece of technology was really crucial in changing the thinking of how single-stranded, so most of the time we will deal with mass-stranded dolphins when they strand in large groups, but when dolphins strand as just one individual, the thinking years ago was that those animals should be euthanized, and we challenged that thinking, and luckily technology such as this tag caught up, and it allowed us to be able to prove that if the animal was assessed as healthy and we were able to provide treatments to the animal, that animal could be released into open water and would find other dolphins and be able to assimilate back into those groups. And so this tag made that possible. This tag is temporary, it's very light. It actually attaches to the rear of the dorsal fin. Dolphin dorsal fins are much the same as our ears. So in a very quick procedure, this will get attached to the trailing edge of the dorsal fin. light because there's not much battery to it. It only lasts for about 60 days. And so once that battery is done, we don't want this tag to stay on. So the tag will actually drop off the dolphin after a given period of time. So one of these tags actually went out. The team actually deployed one of these tags on one of the dolphins tonight. So we'll be able to see as that animal heads offshore with the 5 other animals that it was released with. Next, I want to show you a piece of equipment that has really changed how we respond. Dolphins can be quite heavy. Typically, they're anywhere between 200, some species we have 900 to 1,000 pounds. So we needed a way to be able to transport these dolphins from where they stranded to our vehicles to be able to get them to a deep water location. So we developed this dolphin cart using a welder in the area. You can see the large tires in the bottom. This will go over sand, go through water, over mud, over shellfish beds. It allows us to be able to bring these animals back to the vehicle so they can be transported. Last piece of equipment is by far the largest and also the newest. Let me switch over here. We're actually going to go outside for this one.
So we'll go ahead and head on outside. What I'm going to introduce you to is kind of the next generation in stranding response. This has been something that has been 3 years in the making. It is the Mobile Dolphin Rescue Clinic, or as we affectionately call it, MOBI. MOBI is what happens if you take the largest FedEx truck you've ever seen, a human ambulance, and a veterinary lab, and put them all together. This vehicle arrived only 2 weeks ago, so it isn't actually ready to be deployed in the field yet. We're still, as we go through, I'll show you the inside of it, but we're still getting this vehicle ready to respond. So we're hoping that within the next week, we'll be ready to be able to have this out in the field so that it will be able to help rescue the next 6 dolphins that we get. So one of the interesting things is because we need to be able to transport these animals and carry, it takes about 8 to 10 people to carry these dolphins in a specialized stretcher that you'll see in a second. So we needed a ramp that would be able to hold that much weight, not only of the animal, but also of the responders that are bringing the dolphins in. So once the dolphins come in, this is the transport area. So this is where the dolphins would ride. This can hold 6 dolphins. In a pinch, we can put padding down the center, and we can actually transport up to 9 dolphins. There's a ring on the top of the ceiling that is reinforced that allows us to be able to weigh the dolphins as they come in. So that way our veterinarian can provide the most accurate treatments to each individual animal. When a dolphin comes in, and you'll see, here's our model dolphin that we use for training our volunteers. It's air-filled now. When we train volunteers how to stretcher, and this is one of the stretchers here, we actually fill this with water to be able to simulate that 300 pounds that it takes to carry a dolphin. So a dolphin will be sitting in each of these locations as we transport. The walls are blank now. You'll see that there's small pieces of tape. Right now the staff is planning out where they want everything. When the dolphins come in, a blood sample is taken from the tail, and then an IV line is put in. So the goal is to get about 2 liters of IV fluids into each dolphin, and that helps negate the effects of stress and shock. The best way we can compare stranding of a dolphin to in human terms is a bit like being in a car accident. So these animals are suffering from stress and shock, and so we want to alleviate that as much as possible. As we move forward, I want to show you, this is some animals will be calm when we're working with them, others are not, and may thrash around, and it may be dangerous for them as well as our responders. So we developed this tent. For those of you with dogs that are sensitive to thunder, you probably have heard of thunder shirts. Think of this as a thunder tent for dolphins. This basically, we can put the dolphin in here. We can pull the sides down if we need to examine, or if the veterinarian needs to do an ultrasound. But this helps provide a smaller space so that the dolphin hopefully feels more comfortable and will be less reactive as we transport the dolphin. So as we move forward, we're moving into the veterinary lab. As I mentioned, all the equipment is getting put in here. Wind is out in the field today. So in the next couple of days, we'll have the blood analyzers installed on the lab bench next to the fridge and freezer. So this is where the blood samples will be run, and all of the treatments will be done that will be given to the dolphins as we're transporting and getting them to the release site. We step out to the front of MOBI and back into the Rescue Operations Center. Well, actually, I should mention how this came about. The vehicle MOBI, the Mobile Dolphin Rescue Clinic, came about due to donors over the years, and then also specifically our Party for a Porpoise event, which is done in August. And so that is, over the past couple of years, we've been raising funds to be able to make this a reality. Switch over.
All right, there we go.
That was great, Brian. I loved seeing that. And I know everybody who's watching now totally did too. I've said this before and I'll say it again. It looks like the Batmobile, but the Dolphin Mobile. It is so high tech, so innovative. We're going to be able to save so many more dolphins with those tools at our disposal, thanks to Party for a Porpoise and the supporters who contributed. With all this information you're collecting, all the blood samples and all the tag data, what are you doing with all that information? It must be tremendous.
Yep, it is. It is overwhelming. We do our best to capture as much data as we can, analyze that data, and then it forms kind of a continuous loop. That all feeds back, and the goal is to make the next response more efficient, provide even better treatment. And then as we're doing this, sharing what we're learning with other places, because strandings happen so frequently here, it provides an excellent opportunity, not only for other responders from the US and internationally to come here and work alongside our staff, but allows us to be able to take technology that we have started using here and spread it to others. We have some folks online who are joining us from New Zealand tonight, and we actually have some of those satellite tags that I showed you earlier. They're asking the same questions that we are asking. And so we have some of our satellite tags that are based over in New Zealand, because that, again, is also another international stranding hotspot.
That's so cool, Brian. I mean, knowledge is power, and in this case, it is the power to save lives. And we're sharing that knowledge with everybody. I think it's tremendous. So Brian, I know we're gonna get this question right away if we haven't already. What is the general public doing to help, and what can they do to help? What do you recommend?
Short answer is a lot. We have an extensive network of over 220 trained responders. You'll see some of them in the video that's up now. This helps our program, but other rescue programs here and abroad. Thankfully, the response from individuals has been incredibly positive. This is very much by the general public that this program was started. Cape Codders saw a need and wanted to figure out ways to do it. And so that's what this has grown to in the past 22 years. Each volunteer undergoes extensive training. They actually go through 3 nights of training, and then we refresh that training annually throughout the year. Outside of volunteers, the other thing that we rely on a lot, and other agencies around the world rely on a lot, is people, when they see an animal in distress, calling the local stranding agency. And that's how the event today, so the 6 dolphins that stranded, was called in by a member of the general public. They were walking the beach, they saw dolphins swimming in shallow water, and that starts this whole process. If someone doesn't make that call, the equipment just sits here and we sit at our computers. So once someone makes that call, that puts all of this in motion and allows us to be able to get out there and provide the best care to these animals.
Wow, it really is people working together.
One thing I should also mention, we talked about the size of these animals, and we always do want to warn people to be very careful. These are wild animals that are very strong and very large. And so we encourage people not to get close to the animal because that could be very dangerous for them as well as the animal. So we want everybody's safety to be in mind at all times.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up, Brian. And I know I have so many questions, but this episode is for our supporters. So at this time, we would like to open up the question and answer segment. At the bottom of your screen, you should see a little box that says Q&A. Please click there and start typing away your questions, and we'll do our best to get to as many questions as we can in the allotted time. I know I'm totally open to stay a little later, as well as Brian, so we'll see how this goes. We do have a lot of questions coming in, and the first one says, this is from Mark. Mark is saying, when you say common dolphin, do you mean bottlenose dolphins, or is it a different?
That is an excellent question. So common dolphins are actually a separate species. That is the type of dolphin that strands the most here on Cape Cod. Really quite remarkable. I encourage people to Google common dolphin, and what you will see is a beautiful tricolored animal, black, gray, tan. It is really striking to see these animals in almost an hourglass shape pattern on the side. Now, we do get bottlenose dolphins, and that satellite tag that I mentioned earlier, we actually have a active satellite tag that is out on a bottlenose dolphin. We don't get bottlenose dolphins that often. We are seeing more of them. And that is on a bottlenose dolphin that was named Boomer because strandings tend to happen on holidays for some strange reason. We tend to get, it seems you can always count on it. And so Boomer stranded on July 4th. And so Boomer is still in New England, and we're tracking him with that satellite tag. And so hopefully that's going well. But yeah, great question. So yeah, common dolphins are a different species altogether.
That's cool. Thank you. Another question we have here is from Anonymous. Anonymous is asking, what happens to the animals that can't be released?
That's a good question. And this is part of the process of, we know what healthy looks like, and we know what sick and debilitated looks like. As a welfare organization, we never want to release an animal that is not capable of surviving. We don't want to put an animal through that pain and suffering. So we are always prepared. While it is incredibly difficult for the staff, we are prepared to perform a humane euthanasia if the animal is too sick or debilitated. Now, the challenge is that gray area in between, and all of the work that we're doing, the satellite tags, the blood analyzers, is to make that gray area more narrow and a little bit more clear. So that way we know what healthy is and what sick is. Unfortunately, there are no current rehabilitation options for cetaceans in the Northeast. So if we can't release the animals and provide short-term treatment, then unfortunately euthanasia is the only possibility. So again, we're constantly trying to figure out ways to determine what healthy looks like.
Completely understandable. Thank you. And thank you for asking that question. That's an important question that we need to address all the time. Another question here is from Greg. Greg is asking, first he says, great presentation. Thank you, Greg. How did you get into this line of work, Brian? Greg has 2 daughters who want to do this when they grow up. What should they focus on?
So there's no one clear path. Our entire staff have a background, college classes in biology. I myself was an animal science major. I worked with livestock growing up. And so that kind of transitioned into this, and it is something that we always stress on, but a good biology background is very useful in this field, and going out and getting experience. We have interns. They're being pretty good and staying in the background now, but some of the folks who are getting back from the response are part of our intern program. So we always encourage people, you can visit the website and learn more about becoming an intern and gaining that experience. And there's really not very many places in the world where you can get the kind of experience you can get here.
Yes, that's true. Well, good luck to your girls, Greg. Thank you for that question. I have another question here. This one is from Elise. Elise is asking, what is the second most sea animal that gets stranded? And do you see juveniles and babies or mainly adults?
That is a great question. And it would be, for dolphins, it's Atlantic white-sided dolphins. Again, another species that can be found in the North Atlantic, a little bit larger than the common dolphins I talked about earlier. And we will see a mix of age classes. When you see dolphins at sea, typically you're seeing very dynamic groups. It's called fission fusion. So you'll see groups as small as 8, but then minutes later they'll formed up and it'll be groups of hundreds. And you'll see a remarkable difference, not only of different sexes of animals, but also different age classes. So you'll see calves, you'll see subadults, you'll see adult animals all swimming in and going through that process.
Wow, thank you. Thanks for asking that question, Elise. I have another question here from Anonymous. And Anonymous is asking, how much does a dolphin cart cost? That's a good question.
Ooh, that is a good question. These are
Thank
all,
you.
yeah, these are all custom made. I don't, and these carts are have been around for a while. About $3,000 to $4,000 because every part of it is custom, and that's what we find. Other than the veterinary supplies that we have to be able to treat the dolphins, there's not a lot of equipment out there that can move a 500-pound animal and 500-pound anything off the beach. And so this was all designed back of the napkin, finding someone skilled enough in working with metal to be able to make it into something real that can actually get a 500-pound dolphin off the beach.
So innovative. Thank you for that, Brian. Another question here is from Barbara. Barbara is asking, what proportion of responses are dolphins versus seals in any 1 year?
That's a great question. And that is, we basically respond to marine mammals on Cape Cod. It's either dolphin, a seal, or we also get large whales. Any given year, it's about 50%. Some years are more, some years are less. But as we've looked at the 21, 22 years of data now, it's about 50-50. We have been seeing increases in dolphin strandings, but also we have seen increases in seal strandings over that same time. We're also seeing shifts of animals, which is very interesting. I mentioned earlier that we're seeing bottlenose dolphins. We didn't used to see them that often. They were usually south of New York. So we have seen changes. Sometimes we see manatees. We've actually had manatee rescues as part of what we need to be ready for as well.
Wow. Those poor manatees.
It gets cold in New England, especially this time of year.
I have another question here that says, how frequent, this is from Anonymous, how frequent are strandings and is it seasonal?
Great question. It depends on, it can be daily. It can be multiple times a day. It really, we haven't quite pinned down what is the ebb and flow. Traditionally, dolphins typically strand in our wintertime between December and April. Can happen at any time of the year. And this year is a perfect example. That stranding that I talked about, the 45 dolphins in August, that was one of the largest mass strandings in the last 22 years. So we typically get, or at least in the last 5 years, we've gotten a mass stranding during the summertime, which used to be very unique and unfortunately is becoming more commonplace and provides its own challenges with that.
Thank you for that, Brian. I have another question here from Anonymous. If emergency rescue are reactive solutions to stranded marine life, what is the preventative solution? It's such a great question.
That is an excellent question. And part of it is, part of our job, a big part of our job is documenting why these dolphins and seals are stranding. With dolphins here on Cape Cod, this is something that we have known that has gone on for hundreds of years. And so some of the earliest records of Cape Cod, that happened. And part of that, again, is due to our geography. But this provides an incredible opportunity for us to study places that have strandings that occur frequently and do things like hearing tests. So it's the same hearing test that newborn babies get in the hospital. We can actually perform that test while the dolphin's receiving treatment to the release site. And that information can be used to be able to help other places when they're not used to having strandings that occur. Just last week, we were actually consulting with responders in Mauritius, a small island in the Indian Ocean. They have melon-headed whales that are swimming close to shore. One of the things they're looking at is they want to make sure that those strandings weren't caused due to underwater noise. Because of the information that we're collecting here, that can help them determine that. Other things that we deal with, dealing with seals, we see a lot of entanglement in fishing gear. And so being able to deal with those entanglements and rescue those animals, but use that information to be able to affect change. A great example is right whales. one of the things that we do is document right whale mortalities. And so the team will go out and do a necropsy, try to determine why that right whale died. That information is then used by the federal government, the fishing industry, and other conservation agencies and our conservation team to be able to make changes so that fishermen can still fish, but right whales can still use those habitats and not get entangled in that fishing gear.
Wow, another innovative tool that is in the works, that ropeless gear.
Yep.
I have another question here. This is from Abdul in Sierra Leone. Thank you so much for joining us. He's asking, how long will the animals be able to stay out of the water without dying? So what's their...
That is an excellent question. So larger whales, a very short period of time, and part of that is a factor of their size. The good thing with the dolphins that we see here is they are smaller, and so they do not, their bodies, because they're smaller, they're able to withstand the pressure of really feeling gravity for the first time. When we walked through Moby, you saw those blue mats, and what that is that's foam to help cushion and spread that weight out. Because while these dolphins can survive because they breathe air, they can survive out of water for extended periods of time. What we need to do is, because people ask a lot of times, do we need to keep them wet? Only if the dolphins are overheating. And time strandings, we do need to do that. We do need to try to cool them down. But in the wintertime, because these animals aren't swimming through the water, they're not, you know what it's like when you, for those that run, you know, when you finish your run, you immediately get cold because your body's been working and you've been generating a lot of heat from your muscles. Well, as soon as you stop, you get cold real quick. That's exactly what happens to these dolphins. So we actually don't want to put water on them, because then that'll just lower their body temperature and make it that much more difficult for us to be able to release them safely. So it's a very delicate balance that we have. But typically with smaller dolphins like this, we try to make it as short as possible. Typically from when we get the first call to when we release is about 4 hours, and that's enough time for us to get there, get the dolphins on the dolphin carts, into the transport vehicle, and to a location that is deep water. That process can take a while, sometimes 4 hours, sometimes a little bit longer. But as long as we're providing supportive care for the dolphins, they do very, very well in those circumstances until we can release them.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Brian. We are running out of time, so we have one more question here. We have so many questions really, but I actually want to know the answer to this too. So we're going to go ahead and ask this. This is from Karina. Karina is asking, what is the most unusual animal you've rescued, and what is the most complicated case?
Oh, unusual would have been, we actually had a minke whale that stranded alive here 4 years ago. It was on a beach in Wellfleet where a lot of our dolphin strandings occur. It was a 22-foot minke whale. We estimated the weight was about 6,000 pounds, not something that we were going to be able to move. Tide was rushing in, but luckily we were able to take all of that information that we've learned from responding to dolphins and apply that, scale it up to that minke whale. And we learned so much from that case. We were able to refloat the animal and herd the animal out in the deep water. Typically that's where the story ends, but luckily we had one of these satellite tags with us. And so we put that satellite tag on that minke whale, and it was the first time that anyone had ever been able to satellite tag a rescued large whale. And so we got to see what happened. So that animal not only made its way out of Cape Cod Bay, but then traveled all the way down to the Turks and Caicos. Not a bad idea.
I'm going to
spent time in the Caribbean, and eventually made its way back up the east coast of the United States. And over 83 days, traveled over 10,500 miles, which is the same distance as a flight leaving Heathrow in London and landing in Honolulu in Hawaii. So it's really incredible that we were able to get this information off of just one event.
Wow, I'm so glad we asked that question. Thank you, Karina. So everybody else, I'm so sorry. We have so many questions. We won't have time to answer them at this broadcast. We'll have to have Brian back for another episode at some point. So thank you everybody who is able to join us. Please don't forget to Visit our website, ifaw.org, for the most up-to-date information. We have really great videos of these rescues Brian talks about that's really happening all the time. And I look forward to seeing everybody in December for vlog number 7. You'll be in for a real treat. I promise you, it's only getting better from here. So everyone, thank you.